I sat in my armchair, staring at the TV as the news anchor droned on about the latest economic downturn. It was a gloomy evening, and the rain outside didn't help. My mind began to wander, thinking about my daughter, Emily. We hadn't spoken in 6 years, not since she left for college. I had always hoped that she would come back, but as the years went by, I lost hope. Suddenly, I heard the doorbell ring. It was Emily, my daughter. I hadn't seen her in 6 years. I was taken aback, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to ask her why she had ignored me for so long. But another part of me, a part that I didn't know still existed, wanted to hug her, to tell her how much I missed her. I got up from my armchair and made my way to the door. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down, and opened it. Emily stood in front of me, looking nervous. She was thinner than I remembered, and her hair was shorter. But her eyes, those beautiful brown eyes, were still the same. "Hi, Dad," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was taken aback by her greeting. It was so casual, so normal. I didn't know how to respond. I just stood there, looking at her, trying to process everything. "Dad, can I come in?" she asked, breaking the silence. I nodded, still trying to process everything. I stepped aside, allowing her to enter. She walked into the living room, looking around nervously. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," she said, her voice trembling. I sat down in my armchair, gesturing for her to sit down next to me. She did, looking at me with a mixture of fear and determination. "Dad, I'm in debt," she said, her voice cracking. "I owe $60,000, and I don't know how to pay it off." I was taken aback by her revelation. I had no idea that she was struggling financially. I thought she was doing well, that she had a good job and a comfortable life. "What happened?" I asked, trying to keep my cool. Emily took a deep breath and began to explain. She had taken out a loan to start her own business, but it had failed. She had tried to get a job, but no one would hire her. She was struggling to make ends meet, and she didn't know what to do. I listened to her, trying to process everything. I was angry, hurt, and worried all at once. But as I looked at her, I saw the fear in her eyes, and my heart melted. I knew that I had to help her, no matter what. "Emily, we'll figure this out together," I said, trying to reassure her. "We'll find a way to pay off your debt and get you back on your feet." Emily looked at me, her eyes welling up with tears. "Thank you, Dad," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, trying to reassure her. "We'll get through this together," I said. "I promise." And with that, we began our journey to pay off her debt and rebuild our relationship. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to help my daughter, no matter what it took. As we sat there, trying to come up with a plan, I couldn't help but think about the past. About how Emily's mother and I had always dreamed of giving our daughter the best possible life. We had sacrificed so much for her, and this was the result. I felt a pang of guilt and regret, wondering if there was something I could have done differently. Emily, sensing my tension, put her hand on my arm. "Dad, it's not your fault," she said. "I made my own decisions, and I have to live with them." I looked at her, seeing the determination in her eyes. "You're right," I said. "We'll focus on the present and figure out a way to move forward." We spent the next few hours brainstorming ideas, making lists, and crunching numbers. Emily told me about her business plan, about how she had always dreamed of starting her own company. But she had made some mistakes, taken some risks that hadn't paid off. As the night wore on, I realized that Emily's debt was more complicated than I had initially thought. There were credit cards, loans, and even a few unpaid bills. It was a mess, and I didn't know where to start. But I was determined to help my daughter. I told her that we would work together, that we would find a way to pay off her debt and get her back on her feet. The next few days were a blur of activity. We spent hours on the phone, calling creditors, negotiating payments, and setting up payment plans. Emily was hesitant at first, but I could see the relief in her eyes as we made progress. As we worked, I couldn't help but think about my own business plan. I had been working on it for months, trying to come up with the perfect idea. And then it hit me, I would use my business plan to help Emily pay off her debt. I called my business partner, Mike, and told him about Emily's situation. He was sympathetic, and we started brainstorming ways to use our business to help her. We came up with a plan to offer Emily a job at our company, one that would pay her a decent salary and help her pay off her debt. But there was a catch: she would have to work hard, really hard, to prove herself. I presented the plan to Emily, and she was hesitant at first. But as I explained the details, I could see the excitement in her eyes. She was willing to do whatever it took to pay off her debt and start fresh. We shook hands, and I knew that we were in this together. We would work tirelessly to pay off her debt and build a successful business. But as we were celebrating, I received a call from an unknown number. It was a woman, her voice cold and menacing. "You think you can just waltz in and save your daughter," she said. "You think you can just pay off her debt and everything will be okay?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "Who is this?" I demanded. "You'll find out soon enough," the woman said. "Just remember, you can't always protect your daughter. Sometimes, she has to face the consequences of her actions." And with that, the line went dead. I was left standing there, wondering who the woman was and what she wanted. But one thing was certain: I would do whatever it took to protect my daughter. I looked at Emily, and she was watching me, concern etched on her face. "What's wrong, Dad?" she asked. I hesitated, unsure of what to say. But then I knew, I had to tell her the truth. We were in this together, and we would face whatever came next as a team. "Let's sit down," I said. "We need to talk." I took a deep breath and sat down next to Emily, trying to process the strange phone call. "That was a weird call," I said, trying to downplay the situation. "Some woman claiming that I couldn't always protect you." Emily's eyes narrowed. "What did she mean by that?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. But something about Emily's expression told me that she needed to know the truth. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I think it might have something to do with your debt." Emily's face fell, and she looked away. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath and launched into the story of the phone call, trying to recall every detail. Emily listened intently, her eyes growing wider with each passing moment. When I finished, she looked at me with a mixture of fear and determination. "We need to figure out who that woman is," she said, her voice firm. "And we need to do it now." I nodded, feeling a surge of adrenaline. We spent the next few hours trying to track down the mysterious woman, but every lead ended in a dead end. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. As the sun began to set, Emily and I decided to take a break and clear our heads. We went for a walk around the block, trying to process the events of the day. But as we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I glanced around, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Just people going about their daily business. Still, the feeling persisted. When we returned home, I decided to do some research on my own. I spent hours scouring the internet, looking for any mention of the mysterious woman. But every search ended in failure. It was as if she didn't exist. Just as I was about to give up, I received a strange package in the mail. Inside, I found a note with a single sentence: "You can't protect her forever." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that the mysterious woman was still out there, watching us. I called Emily into the room, showing her the note. Her eyes widened in fear as she read the words. "What does it mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. I shook my head. "I don't know, but I think we need to be careful." We spent the rest of the night on edge, waiting for something to happen. But as the hours ticked by, nothing did. It was as if the mysterious woman had vanished into thin air once again. But I knew that she was still out there, waiting for her moment to strike. And when she did, I would be ready. I would do whatever it took to protect my daughter. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in grave danger. The mysterious woman was still out there, and she was determined to hurt Emily. I knew that I had to be vigilant, to protect my daughter at all costs. But as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder, what was the mysterious woman's true motive? And what would she do next? The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. I groggily reached over and answered it, hoping that it wasn't the mysterious woman again. But as I heard the voice on the other end, my heart sank. It was Mike, my business partner. "We need to talk," he said, his voice serious. "What's going on?" I asked, feeling a sense of trepidation. "It's about Emily," Mike said. "I think she's in over her head." I felt a surge of adrenaline as I sat up in bed, my mind racing with possibilities. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I've been going over the numbers, and I think Emily's debt is more serious than we thought," Mike said, his voice laced with concern. "She's got creditors breathing down her neck, and I'm not sure she can pay them off." I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me as I realized the gravity of the situation. I had been so focused on helping Emily pay off her debt that I hadn't considered the possibility of creditors taking action. "What can we do?" I asked, feeling a sense of desperation. "We need to come up with a plan, and fast," Mike said. "I think we should offer her a deal. We'll pay off her debt in exchange for her working for us for a certain amount of time." I hesitated, unsure if that was the right solution. But as I thought about it, I realized it might be the only way to keep Emily out of financial trouble. "Okay, let's do it," I said, making the decision. "But we need to make sure Emily is on board with it." Mike agreed, and we spent the next few hours hashing out the details of the plan. When we were finished, I called Emily into the room to discuss it with her. As I explained the plan, I could see the hesitation in her eyes. She was clearly unsure about it, and I didn't blame her. It was a lot to ask, to work for us for an extended period of time in exchange for paying off her debt. But as I looked at her, I knew that it was the only way to keep her safe. "What do you think?" I asked, trying to gauge her reaction. Emily took a deep breath before speaking. "I don't know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a lot to ask." I nodded, understanding her concerns. "I know it's not ideal," I said. "But it's the only way to keep you out of financial trouble. And we'll be here to support you every step of the way." Emily looked at me, her eyes searching for reassurance. And as I looked back at her, I knew that I would do whatever it took to make sure she was okay. "Okay," she said finally, nodding her head. "I'll do it." I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I hugged her tightly. "We'll get through this together," I said, trying to reassure her. But as we hugged, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in for a wild ride. The mysterious woman was still out there, watching us, and I knew that she wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. And what she wanted was Emily. As the days turned into weeks, Emily threw herself into her work. She was determined to pay off her debt and start fresh, and I was proud of her for it. But despite her hard work, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in danger. The mysterious woman was still out there, watching us, and I knew that she wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. And one day, she made her move. I was at home when I received a strange package in the mail. Inside, I found a note with a single sentence: "You'll never be able to protect her." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that the mysterious woman had finally made her move. And as I looked around the room, I knew that I was in grave danger. The mysterious woman was closing in, and I had to do whatever it took to keep Emily safe. But as I looked at the note again, I realized that it wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. And I knew that I had to take it seriously. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I read the note again, my mind racing with possibilities. Who was this mysterious woman, and what did she want with Emily? I knew I had to act fast, to protect my daughter from whatever danger was lurking in the shadows. I immediately called Mike and told him about the note. He was just as concerned as I was, and we both agreed that we needed to take action. We decided to increase security around Emily, to make sure she was safe at all times. We hired a bodyguard to watch over her, and we also installed security cameras around her apartment. But despite our best efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in over our heads. The mysterious woman seemed to always be one step ahead of us, and I was starting to get desperate. I decided to take matters into my own hands, to try and uncover the identity of the mysterious woman. I started by asking around, trying to see if anyone had any information about her. But no one seemed to know anything, and I was starting to get frustrated. I decided to try a different approach, to use my business skills to try and track her down. I started by analyzing the notes she had sent us, looking for any clues that might lead us to her. And then, I had an idea. I remembered a phrase she had used in one of her notes, a phrase that seemed out of place. I decided to look into it, to see if it might lead us to her. I spent hours researching, poring over books and articles, trying to find any mention of the phrase. And then, finally, I found it. The phrase was a quote from a book that was written by a woman who had a reputation for being ruthless. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that we might be dealing with someone who was capable of anything. I immediately called Mike and told him about my discovery. He was just as shocked as I was, and we both agreed that we needed to be careful. We decided to investigate the author further, to see if we could find any connection between her and the mysterious woman. And as we dug deeper, we discovered something that made our blood run cold. The author had a history of stalking and harassment, and she had a reputation for being relentless. We knew that we had to be careful, that we couldn't let our guard down for a second. And as we continued to investigate, we realized that we were in for the fight of our lives. The mysterious woman was not going to give up easily, and we were going to have to do everything in our power to stop her. I was determined to protect Emily, no matter what it took. And as I looked at her, I knew that I would do whatever it took to keep her safe. But as I turned to leave, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see the mysterious woman standing in the doorway, a smirk on her face. "You'll never be able to protect her," she said, her voice dripping with malice. And with that, she disappeared into thin air. I was left standing there, my heart racing with fear. I knew that we were in grave danger, and I didn't know how to stop it. I stood there, frozen in shock, as I tried to process what had just happened. The mysterious woman had just appeared and disappeared, leaving me with more questions than answers. I knew I had to act fast, to protect Emily and myself from whatever danger was lurking in the shadows. I immediately called Mike and told him about the encounter. He was just as shaken as I was, and we both agreed that we needed to take drastic measures to ensure our safety. We decided to increase the security around Emily's apartment, to make sure she was safe at all times. We also decided to vary our daily routines, to make it harder for the mysterious woman to track us. But despite our best efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in over our heads. The mysterious woman seemed to always be one step ahead of us, and I was starting to get desperate. I decided to take a different approach, to try and understand the mysterious woman's motives. I started by researching the author of the book that had led us to her. I wanted to know more about her, to understand what drove her to behave in such a way. As I delved deeper into the research, I discovered that the author had a troubled past. She had been involved in a series of high-profile stalking cases, and had even spent time in prison for her crimes. I realized that we were dealing with someone who was capable of extreme behavior, and that made me even more determined to protect Emily. I spent the rest of the day trying to come up with a plan, to figure out how to stop the mysterious woman once and for all. But as the hours ticked by, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. The mysterious woman was getting bolder, and I knew it was only a matter of time before she made her next move. I decided to take a break, to clear my head and try to come up with a new plan. As I stepped out of the apartment, I noticed a piece of paper on the ground. I picked it up, and my heart sank as I saw the words scrawled on it. "You'll never be able to protect her. She's mine now." I felt a wave of fear wash over me as I realized that the mysterious woman had been watching us. She knew our every move, and she was getting closer and closer to her goal. I knew I had to act fast, to stop her before it was too late. But as I looked around, I realized that I was alone. Mike was nowhere to be found, and Emily was still at work. I was on my own, and I knew I had to be careful. I decided to go back inside, to wait for Mike and Emily to return. But as I turned the key in the lock, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see the mysterious woman standing there, a smile on her face. "You're too late," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "Emily is mine now." And with that, she turned and ran, leaving me to chase after her. I sprinted after the mysterious woman, my heart racing with fear and adrenaline. I had to catch her, had to save Emily from her clutches. I ran through the streets, weaving in and out of pedestrians and cars, my eyes fixed on the woman's fleeing form. Finally, I saw her duck into a nearby alleyway, and I followed, my breath coming in ragged gasps. As I entered the alley, I saw the woman standing over Emily, a triumphant smile on her face. But as I approached, Emily looked up at me with a fierce determination in her eyes. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she spat at the woman, her voice trembling with fear but also with courage. The woman sneered at her, but I could see the faintest glimmer of uncertainty in her eyes. She was starting to realize that Emily was not going to go down without a fight. And then, in a flash of insight, I understood the woman's motivations. She was not just a stalker, but a rival. A rival who had been obsessed with Emily's success and had become determined to destroy her. But as I looked at Emily, I saw the strength and resilience that had always defined her. She was not going to be destroyed. Not by this woman, not by anyone. With a fierce cry, I launched myself at the woman, grabbing her arms and pinning her to the wall. "You're not going to hurt her," I snarled, my face inches from hers. "You're not going to hurt anyone else again." The woman struggled and kicked, but I held her firm. And as I looked into her eyes, I saw the madness and obsession that had driven her to this point. I saw the damage she had done, the lives she had ruined. And I knew that she would never be able to hurt anyone again. The police arrived soon after, responding to a call from a passerby who had seen the struggle. They took the woman away, her eyes fixed on Emily with a malevolent glare. But as they led her out of the alley, Emily turned to me and threw her arms around me. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, her voice shaking with tears. "Thank you for saving me." I held her close, feeling a wave of relief and joy wash over me. We had done it. We had stopped the woman and saved Emily. And as we walked out of the alley, arm in arm, I knew that we would never be apart again. The woman was charged with stalking and harassment, and she was sentenced to several years in prison. Emily and I went to the trial, watching as she was led away in handcuffs. And as we left the courtroom, Emily turned to me and smiled. "It's over," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "It's finally over." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure and relief. It was over. The nightmare was finally over. And as we walked out into the bright sunlight, I knew that we would never forget the terror we had faced. But we would also never forget the love and strength that had carried us through.